other side have? Literally the tanks, the guns, and the planes. And that nets out to like it's an honest democratic system. I'd look at that and I'd say, that's a bit of instability there, but if it works for you. But in America, that's definitely a bad plan, and it's not even working. The Democrats control the Pentagon, just like they control anything else.
Okay, so using my Monopoly board analogy.
Yeah.
The Democrats, they have Boardwalk, they have Park Place, Pacific Avenue, all of that. They got the waterworks, they got the railroads, and the Republicans, they got the electric company. The Republicans are holding on Baltic Avenue with a little house on it, and they're just banking everything on like community chest. Like, I'm going to roll a chance card.
Let's be fair. What is the single most valuable piece of the Monopoly board?
Park Avenue.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Boardwalk.
Okay. So imagine again, it's like if the Republicans thought that they had like the top tier building on Boardwalk. That's kind of like what the Republican strategy.
They have Mediterranean Avenue, which is the lowest.
Yeah. They're like, I control, the Democrats may have one or two or three houses on every single thing. I have a hotel on Boardwalk, and that's my strategy to win Monopoly. And then you look at it, and they don't even have that.
No, it turns out they have the Democrats have two hotels on Boardwalk, and they have one little house. They don't even have a house on Baltic Avenue.
And anybody who denies that, the Democrats don't control the Pentagon, go away. Go away. Go away. I don't. If you want even something like
can I just point out, when you say the Democrats control this, the Democrats control that, on Obamacare, the Republicans ran for 25 years on repeal of Obamacare. They said it every day for 50 years. For 70 years, they talked about repealing Obamacare. And they got the Republican president, and they got the Republican House and Senate, and they said, God damn it, we're going to repeal Obamacare. And who was the vote that killed that repeal? Who voted with the Democrats to save the Democrats, the previous Democratic president's signature piece of legislation. It was the previous candidate for the presidency of the Republican Party. And then, who was it that joined the Senate to stop Trump and voted for his impeachment? It was the other previous Republican candidate for president, the last one.
Yes, it was.
And who was it when Obamacare came up against a challenge in the Supreme Court, and everyone thought it was doomed? Everyone said, yeah, this is not going to hold up. Who was it that switched sides at the last minute and basically reinterpreted the law and read language into it that didn't even exist as a way to save it? It was the Republican-appointed, supposedly arch-conservative Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Yep.
So these people might be, even the people that you think, well, they have this, they have that. When the time is needed, the chips are really down and we need your vote, they vote with the other side.
Yes.
So they're fair weather at best. John Roberts, this is the thing I don't like about the Amy Coney Barrett, is everyone's saying, well, now it's an 8-1 majority. No, it's not, because I predict John Roberts, you will find him siding more and more with the liberal side of the court. And then one of the other ones will start to mesh over with the liberal side of the court, and it'll go back to constant 5-4 back and forth. Trump could nominate all 9 Supreme Court justices.
Wouldn't matter.
And you give it 3 years, and half of them would be voting liberal.
In 2016, 94% of money donated by Defense Department employees went to Hillary Clinton. Okay?
I wish I could remember this now.
I'm going to read the graph. I'm going to read the graph right now. Ready? Percentage of donations from federal employees going to Clinton by agency. All right? Agriculture, 99.4%. Commerce, 98.2%. Defense, 84%. Education, 99.7%. Energy, 95%. HHS, Housing and Human Services, I think that's what that is. Whatever HHS is, 96%. Department of Homeland Security, 90%. Housing and Urban Development, 96%. The IRS, 94%. Department of Labor, 99.4%. Department of Justice, 97%. Department of State, 99%. That's Hillary Clinton's home territory, after all. Treasury Department, 95%. Veterans, 88%. The Republicans do not control any institution. And if you have some absolutely balls to the wall, retarded form of elite theory that you want to give me for 16% of the money donated by Defense Department employees was donated to Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton. And that money came from like the real bigwigs of the department. Those are the guys in charge. They're people who believe this. They hold this thought in their head because they just want to make my life difficult. They will propose any ridiculous possibility under the sun just to poke holes, to avoid facing the very obvious conclusion from the data I promote. It has to be more complex than what I'm saying. It can't just be the simple truth I'm giving you, because that would be scary. So it must be more complicated, and they will complicate it. No. Every federal department is controlled by Democrats. The Republicans thought they had the Pentagon, and they don't. 84% of money donated by employees of the Department of Defense went to Democrats. Aren't soldiers Department of Defense employees? You're right. We could assume that actually a disproportionate amount of that Republican money came from enlisted men, and the officers were donating Democrats. And since America has a professional volunteer military, officers set policy. Anyway, let's talk about the media. Keith Olbermann is back, and he's apparently crazier than ever. Actually, Keith Olbermann has taken the HHH-Pill. Keith Olbermann has said that Republicans and that Trump's appointees and Trump supporters need to be physically removed, presumably in order to preserve a libertarian social order in his covenant community. I remember Keith Olbermann got fired a while back from whatever it was he was doing. He was on ESPN? Wasn't he like a sportscaster?
Originally, that's where he started. It's funny. He was a sportscaster, and then then a Republican became president, and suddenly political opinions. And then when a Republican stopped being president, his show fell apart because no one cared. And then the Republican was president again, suddenly, because he went back to sportscasting. Then a Republican became president again, and suddenly he's got political opinions. It's like these people, like when My Chemical Romance broke up because they said with Obama in the office, no one really needed us anymore. Things were fixed.
Oh my God. Oh, Nancy Pelosi was on Wolf Blitzer. And Nancy Pelosi explained the very basics of how politics works to Wolf Blitzer. And Wolf Blitzer didn't really understand. He's not used to Democrats telling him the truth, even though he works in like their main propaganda network. And then Nancy Pelosi started basically making fun of Wolf Blitzer for not getting it. Dan, would you like to elaborate on this one?
No, I mean, it was pretty sick. I mean, obviously, in a strict sense, she's right, but at the same time, it shows like how separated. It really, you never realize how few actual questions someone like Nancy Pelosi has to take until she's asked one. And it was just a question about, why you've been accused for holding up this stimulus spending. Why don't you just vote for it? Whatever. Just a typical question where they say, this is the other side's position. They've said, blah, 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 respond. It's literally a softball. It's going, here's what the Republicans are saying. Now, could you explain why they're wrong? She went fucking berserk and started speaking in that weird, slow, halty way that she talks and telling him, you are an apologist for the Republican position.
Oh, no, she said CNN has always been an
Yes,
apologist.
she said CNN has always been an apologist.
It reminded me of the fucking speech in Downfall when Hitler's yelling at his generals and he's saying, you've always been cowards and traitors to the Reich. Like, CNN has always been a hive of disloyalty and republicanism.
It was baffling. And then he did all they know how to do, which is he felt pushback and he took the high road, not the high road, the fake high road.
He's like, okay, we'll just discuss this later. And Nancy Pelosi's like, no, I want to talk about this now.
And he said, so she pushed back on him again. And then the only thing he knew how to do, and this is where he tried to use the tactics that he would use on a right-winger, on her, is he said, well, no, I see people out there in the street begging for food, which he doesn't. He doesn't see that. But he's pretending like that's Nancy Pelosi's fault, which maybe you could argue in some roundabout way, but ultimately that's not fair in the context of what they're not begging because she's not passing this stimulus. That's crazy.
No.
It's an unfair thing to say, but he didn't know clearly didn't know what else to do because he was in uncharted waters. And he said that. And then she goes, and what do you do with them? These people. And he said, she said, oh, thank you for having empathy for them. He said, I do have empathy for them because I see them out there. And which was smarmy. But then she goes, well, I feed them. We're feeding them. And I know what she meant. What she meant is I'm passing the stimulus bill. I'm helping to give aid to these people. But it comes off like, she's throwing a ham hock over the fence once a week, and all the people are scurrying out to fight over it. And then she's watching out through her window, smugly smiling and saying to herself, I feed these people. If it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have any ham hock at all.
Sorry,
it was an exchange where everyone involved, shame on everybody involved. Wolf Blitzer, shame on you. Nancy Pelosi, shame on you. CNN, shame on you for your Republican apologist tactics.
Oh, God, Dan, I'm sorry. My brain actually thought of another thing. It occurs to me that somebody might say, I read those massive numbers of federal employees giving to Clinton, and they might say, well, Marcel, that's not representative because that's because Donald Trump was so bad that even, let's say they were all 50-50 or whatever, that 90% of the Republicans in federal agencies rather donate to Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. That's why it's so lopsided. Right? It's not that they're all Democrats. It's that it's a decent amount of Democrats and Republicans, but it's just never Trumpers at every level of federal agencies. And they're all never Trumpers. And of course they're never Trumpers because they have experience working in the federal bureaucracy. They know how the government really works. Okay. That is yet another possibility.
Do you have any more ghosts you want to fight with?
No, listen, I have to deal with these people, right? We can't all live blissful lives just dealing with mere, average people. I have to deal with midwits. I have to deal with people who are quite clever but really dumb, right? Somebody might believe this, in which case and then say, okay, so what do you think when Trump talks about the deep state, a bipartisan coalition against him? That you must think that's real, right? And then they would say, no. Although, the deep state thing has been absolutely fucked over now that Sean Hannity is talking about the deep state. Sean Hannity, a man whose show, he has a fucking, I think it's like an NSA or a CIA or an FBI fucking lapel pin, whatever.
Lapel.
It's, and here, you're ready? Republicans, I can give you another bit of advice.
Pancakes, use maple syrup.
Shut up. They're not even spelt the same way. It's MAPLELAPEL. Come on now. Anyway, the deep state is not some vague, ephemeral conspiracy. It is federal agencies, and one of those federal agencies is the FBI. You as a conservative, okay, the deep state is good. I'm glad it's a good starting point analytically, but you need to take a step forward. There is a federal agency that harasses right-wingers. It is called the FBI. Name them. It's not the deep state, okay? You can't defund the deep state. You can abolish and defund the FBI. I mean, you can't. You'll just get shot, or they'll burn your house down or whatever, or they'll shoot your wife and your kid, right? They'll entrap you and your family. But it's the FBI. The FBI was fabricating evidence for the Russiagate investigation. The FBI agents were destroying their own phones rather than having it come out that they were wiretapping the Trump campaign. It was FBI agents. This agency has a name. It is these precious law enforcers. The FBI are like cops, but even worse. At least cops sometimes defend private property, right? At least in theory, if somebody attacked you in the New York subway, the cops might try to stop them. They won't always, and there was a case about this, but they might. Cops enforce good laws sometimes. The FBI is making your life as a right-winger worse. They honed their craft fucking with Muslims, right? First they came for the Muslims and you didn't speak out because you were not a Muslim, and now they try their hand framing conservatives as white supremacist terrorists, and then shit libs tell you the bullshit lie that the number one terrorist threat in America since September 12th, 2001 has been white supremacy. And then you ask them to name one, and then they name newsworthy events.